Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey. In this lecture, we're going to learn about expression-bodied members. This is a way for you to write C# code in an extremely compact manner without having to sacrifice readability. Okay, so expression-bodied members. Like I said, this is a very compact way of writing some code. For example, if I have some kind of player class and inside I have some kind of player name, and then I have a function that returns the player name, so get player name. So I can do this and then simply just return the player name. And if that's it, a very simple function. This is the regular normal C# code. However, we can make this quite a bit more compact by using expression-bodied members. Basically, if you are familiar with the lambda anonymous functions, then this is basically the same syntax. So we define the function, and then instead of opening a code block, instead of that, we do a little arrow, and then we just put what we want to return. So in this case, just player name, just like this. So if that's it, this is the whole syntax, super simple. So basically this and what we had previously, both are doing the exact same thing. The compiler basically sees that this function returns a string, so it automatically adds a kind of return statement here. So this one does do the same as the other version, it just returns the player name. Now this method, expression-bodied members, this is really only meant for extremely tiny pieces of code. In fact, you can't even do a code block with this syntax. So if I try opening and closing a code block, nope, this is not valid code. You cannot do a code block with this syntax, which means that this feature can really only work with single instructions. You cannot use this on things that require multiple instructions. You can use it like this in order to return some data from a function, but you can also use it to set some data. So for example, a set player name and receives a string for the player name, and we can do the little arrow and set this dot player name equals this player name. And yep, there you go, another perfectly valid function. Again, with the same limitations, this one can only have a single instruction. So if you need to do multiple things, you do still need to use the regular normal C# code block. But for super simple things like just getting and just setting, then this makes the code quite a bit more compact. In fact, one place where I've used this quite a few times is for function pass-throughs. Like for example, if you have some kind of class, and that class is really just meant to be a layer of abstraction for another class. For example, when I made a turn-based strategy game, I had some kind of level class, and inside that one, I was using the actual underlying grid system. And for some functions, I really just wanted to pass that function call onto the underlying grid system. So for this use case, this super compact function pass-through, this is a really great option. So here we can see how this works for functions, but it can also work for properties. So for example, if we have a public string, player name, just a regular property, if so, we can do the get, and now normally we would write a code block. However, we can do the same thing, just a little arrow, and in this case return player name. So this is a read-only property, or we can also assign the set player name equals value. Yep, this is also valid code. Or you can actually also use it in a constructor. So if we have public player, define a constructor with some kind of string for the player name that receives on the constructor. So here we can do the little arrow, player name equals player name. And yep, this is a valid constructor code. However, again, the same limitation. This only works if the constructor has just one instruction. So for example, if over here we had two fields like vector3 for the position, if so, we couldn't set the player name and then set the position on the same line of code. So expression-bodied members are really good for making some really compact code, but as always, you should never sacrifice readability for compactness. So personally, I really like how this has a whole bunch of limitations, which means that it can really only ever be used in situations where it should be used. If you have some extremely simple get and set functions, then this can be quite useful without having to sacrifice any readability.